themselves. Joining us now to discuss this is the president of the NRA, retired Lieutenant Colonel from the Marine Corps, Oliver North. Colonel North, it's great to see you. Also the host of American Heroes on NRA TV, which we'll talk about in just a moment. But first, I wanted to get your reaction not only to these new Democrat bills, pretty sweeping bills, first time they've passed anything in decades, but also the fact that Lindsey Graham is taking up this issue of these red flag laws. Should we be concerned?
Well, I think anybody who's a fan of the Second Amendment, any firearms owner, there's about 100 million firearms owners in America, ought to be concerned every time these kinds of things come up. Look, we have no doubt as to what's really happening in the new legislature of the United States, right? The Congress of the United States now is the House in the hands of the far left. It's not really a gun control issue for them. It's the Disarm America movement that they're actually sponsoring. Our concern for red flag laws, let's deal with that first, is that there's not a sufficient amount of due process in any of those that I've seen. And when I talk about due process is you don't know, somebody could, like happened in Maryland, right after they passed it in the state of Maryland, the police go to this gentleman's house. He doesn't even know that anybody has objected to him or provided information that would indicate that he's a threat to himself or others, and he's dead within minutes of the police showing up. Now, those are the kinds of things that say, wait a second, we can't have laws like that on the books in America that confiscate firearms from law-abiding citizens who are abiding by every rule and regulation out there when there's not a due process to reply to it. And so our concern has been right from the get-go on all of these things. We do not support measures that don't provide due process to law-abiding citizens. Very simple. Now, as far as what Senator Graham is doing, what we're looking at in terms of what he's suggesting is that we make sure that whatever due process comes out of that reflects the Second Amendment to the Constitution. Here's where I think we're heading, John. The far left knows they can't repeal the Second Amendment as long as there's a National Rifle Association with now 5 million members. And as you know, you've heard me say this. I've said I'm in the footsteps of Charlton Heston. Charlton Heston was Moses. Charlton Heston gave us, as Moses, 10 commandments. My job as a U.S. Marine and the president of the National Rifle Association is to deliver not 10 commandments, 10 million members. And that's how we're going to stop this train from coming off the tracks and taking the rights of law-abiding citizens away, because it's happening not just in the U.S. Congress, but as you know, there are state legislatures.
Across the country as well. We talked about that last week. And, you know, sheriffs compelled to... Sheriffs feel like they need to create these Second Amendment sanctuaries because of the overreach from state and local legislation. Well, it's kind of crazy. I also, Colonel, I want to take a look at a piece. Yeah, I want to take a look real quick at a piece from the USA Today and their editorial board, kind of a surprising source here. There's a lot in this article the NRA probably wouldn't like, but I wanted to focus in specifically on this one sentence. New gun control laws can save lives. I don't know about that, but so can enforcing old gun control laws. They cite several failures in the National Instant Criminal Background Check System where people with criminal records should have been denied guns but were able to acquire them anyway. And isn't this really the priority, or shouldn't it be the priority, you know, fixing the laws that are actually already on the books and that have already been passed?
Well, let's look at the event that precipitated a lot of these kinds of measures, of this kind of legislation. The Parkland school shooting. The individual who perpetrated that horrific atrocity had been reported, see something, say something, 46 times to the local sheriff and twice to the FBI, and they did not do a damn thing about it. That's got to stop. Enforcing the current laws means that somebody's got to respond. And the sheriff down there, thankfully he's been suspended by the new governor, but the sheriff down there immediately diverted everyone's attention from the failures of his department to point the finger at the NRA as though we were the perpetrators. That's the kind of thing that has a lot of us very concerned, because, first of all, it was an outright lie, and it was an information operation, propaganda that worked very effectively for them. But the reality of it is all they had to do was respond to any one of those 46 accusations, and that would not have happened.
Right. It's disappointing to see that kind of knee-jerk reaction that you always see from the media. They don't blame the person who was actually there doing the shooting, the person who's in custody. Most of the time, politicians blame the person that they're against on the other side of the aisle, not the actual perpetrator.
Thus the encouragement to enforce the laws that are on the books and do what's right, not just by the criminals taking them off the street, but by law-abiding citizens who are slowly but surely, it says, shall not be infringed. Last 4 words of that Second Amendment. Well, slice by slice, the far left, the Disarm America movement that's going on right now, the Disarm America movement knows that these measures are not going to be abided by criminals. The fact is, criminals aren't going to go get their... Exactly. I mean, all it's going to do is infringe on the rights of law-abiding citizens like you and me, John.
Last week, House Judiciary Committee Chairman Jerry Nadler issued 81 subpoenas to different agencies, entities, and individuals, including the NRA's chief executive, Wayne LaPierre, as part of the House's sprawling, nonstop investigation into President Trump. Will the NRA cooperate with Nadler's request?
Well, look, the NRA always cooperates with congressional requests. I've not actually seen the particular document. I was given a document early on by another committee that we responded, we fully cooperate. We have nothing to hide. What we're trying to do is make sure that the rights of law-abiding American citizens, their Second Amendment rights, are not infringed.
How does it make you feel when people like Nancy Pelosi say that Democrats should declare a national emergency to enact new gun control laws?
Well, look, again, it is the Disarm America movement. They know that what they're doing is not going to stop criminals from committing acts of violence with firearms. And ultimately what they're going to say is, we've tried everything else, none of it worked, therefore confiscation is the next step. In order to get confiscation, they have to repeal the Second Amendment, and there's 2 states that I know of right now that are considering it. Hawaii's already passed legislation to start that process, and there's a former justice of the Supreme Court. In order to get to that part where there's going to be a repeal of the Second Amendment, they have to get rid of the NRA first.
Yeah, well, they're going to have to do a lot. You know, they're going to have to get 2/3 of the U.S. Senate. They're going to have to get 2/3 of the state to sign on a constitutional amendment. I don't think that's going to happen. Colonel, we also, of course, want to talk to you about your show, American Heroes, on NRA TV. But I wanted to ask you quickly if you had a comment on this New York Times article that was published this afternoon. The article quotes 2 NRA board members, Marion Hammer and Wiles K. Lee, who expressed concerns about the future of NRA TV. Hammer told the New York Times, quote, since the founding of NRA TV, some, including myself and other board members, have questioned the value of it. Wiles said, quote, it's clear to me that NRA TV is an experiment, and Wayne, as in the CEO, Wayne LaPierre, is evaluating the future of the enterprise. Colonel North, what can you tell us about the future of NRA TV?
Well, look, I produce and direct and star in a show very much like the one you did, John. It's about American heroes. And American heroes are the kinds of people who put themselves at risk for the benefit of others. And I see NRA as a wonderful mechanism by which we expand our membership. You got to remember, when we started NRA TV, we had about 2 million members, if that. We now have over 5.5 million members, and our membership is growing. And like I said to you, my job is to deliver 10 million members of the 100 million firearms owners in America. I'm inviting them all. Join us in this fight, because we're trying to protect every one of your Second Amendment rights. NRA TV is, in my opinion, a big part of that.
Well, we were showing video of your upcoming episode about Jason Brown. Brown, at one point, was the highest paid center in the NFL. He walked away from his 5-year contract with the St. Louis Rams and $37.5 million to become a farmer. What else can you tell us about him?
Well, what Jason is an American hero, because he put his entire family at risk of their financial future to buy a farm that provides food at no cost to people who can't otherwise afford it. I mean, it's a wonderful story about a man who is an American hero, who's a wonderful patriot and a God-fearing man at every part of his life. And he and his 7 children and his lovely wife are now producing food with volunteers and others that gets to people who otherwise couldn't afford to have food on the table at night. I think it's a wonderful, inspiring story. I love this story. It's our 2nd big episode. We got another one in the can ready to go. And you're going to see a whole bunch of American heroes, just like you produced on your show, and like I did at Fox for 17 years.
I love these stories because nobody really hears about them, you know, in most of the media today. But let's play a clip real quick because I want to hear from Brown specifically.
Sure.
The wealth and the resource isn't in the land and it's not in the food. It's the people that it feeds. I see this as an awesome act of love and sharing the love of Jesus Christ.
Yeah,
sounds like a powerful message. Yeah,
it is a powerful message.
For a guy to walk away from all that, you know, fame and fortune you can get in the NFL for a simpler life. I got a lot of respect for people like that. Lieutenant Colonel Oliver North, great to see you. Thank you for coming on tonight. You can always catch, of course, Oliver North's American Heroes on NRATV.com, and we'll have him back here real soon. Thanks a lot, Colonel North. Great to see you.
Thanks, John. God bless you. Semper Fi.